Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
A Revealed Past by LyricalPiece. After docking at a new island, the Straw Hats are captured by a group of scientists who want to extract their memories to farm information. Realizing Sanji is a Vinsmoke, the scientists believe his memories are the key to stealing Germa's advanced technology. The cook's secrets of his past are revealed on screen, and his crew have a hard time accepting what they're seeing. Adios.
There was no turning back now. Sanji watched his captain's chaotic entrance in awe before skywalking Pudding off the collapsing altar. It didn't take long for the anarchy to send the ceremony into an all-out panic. Sanji looked back in time to see Jinbei facing off with Big Mom, the fishman completely unaffected by her power. "The man who I have chosen to follow," Jinbei was saying, "will surely be king of the pirates someday. I cannot be intimidated by a mere emperor of the sea." Sanji smiled. As did the Straw Hats. It was good to have Jinbei on board. Their helmsman had been scouting the waters when the gas incapacitated their ship, so had been spared capture. If Hollowell and his specialists realized the Straw Hats were a crewmate short, they never showed any sign of it, and the crew wondered if Jinbei would somehow find them and break them out before they managed themselves. He had a way about doing that time and again. His crew clearly had everything under control, and he figured he was far enough away from the front lines now to land somewhere. "Are you okay, Pudding?" he asked the still sobbing girl in his arms. "Let's find someplace safe." Pudding glanced up at him as he spoke, eyes shimmering, then angry. She whipped out another pistol from her dress and fired. Sanji's head snapped back as the shot echoed. Every muscle in each crew member tensed automatically. "Gah! Why did it show like that?" Usopp whined, he and Nami clutching at their hearts. It wasn't like they didn't know Sanji dodged it. Jeez. Pudding fell from Sanji's arms as he dodged and scrambled back. The girl was lucky they were so low to the ground already. Sanji stumbled again as she fired 2 more rounds. "Pudding, stop, be quiet," she growled. She cocked her gun again. "Look, this is the real me. See, you surprised?" She grinned her evil grin. All 3 eyes fluttering in shadow. "Or maybe disappointed. Not to worry, though, you won't have to live with the truth." She fired. Missed. Despite what she was saying, she was wavering, teetering on the edge of something Sanji couldn't place. There were more than 2 sides to Charlotte Pudding, and Sanji didn't think even she knew which one was the real her. Had she ever been allowed to find out, or just designed by her family, like Reiju and his brothers and even himself? Big Mom and Judge weren't that different, not really. Chopper frowned. "It's sad when he puts it like that. Sanji is quite observant when he's paying enough attention," Brooke said. "I don't suppose he's entirely wrong about her." "There is a difference, though," Nami pointed out. "Pudding still has emotions, and she wasn't completely alone or with only bad influences. She had siblings like Chiffon and Lola and probably a lot more. I mean, there are a lot of Charlottes. Plus, she was super cruel," Frankie added. "Not saying she's gotta be perfect or anything, but it's not really a good excuse, either, is it?" "Maybe not," Robin supposed. "But whatever people and circumstances influenced her the most, she either never considered there was another path or wasn't strong enough to take it. Maybe Pudding saw most of her siblings behaving that way and figured that was just how the world worked," Usopp suggested. He tilted his head, face twisting, uncertain. But then she knew how to act like good person, so she knew the difference between good and bad. He shut his eyes and shook his head furiously. This is too complicated." Sanji leaned away from another candy jacket aimed for his head, then straightened. With calm, determined steps, he walked toward Pudding as she fired again and again, shot after shot. The closer he got to her, the more she trembled. Panicked when she ran out of ammo, the girl switched to verbal shots. "I've been conning idiot like you my entire life," she laughed. "You're so easy to deceive." "And what about you?" Sanji interrupted, making her pause. What I mean is, you've also been deceiving yourself, Pudding, haven't you?" There was a moment of stunned silence as Pudding tried to regain her composure. Her lips quivered again, and she shook. Don't act like you understand." In their distraction, Sanji almost didn't see another of Big Mom's children appear, and he barely got himself and Pudding out of the attack's radius in time. Apparently Sanji was still a main target. He attacked even with his sister right there, Frankie said, eyebrow quirked. Daifuku, Pudding cried, reaching for the broad man with shaved blonde hair and a nasty scowl. You screwed this one up, Pudding, her brother scolded. You useless twit. We don't have time to screw around like this. Things can't proceed until this chump dies. Sanji didn't like the way he spoke to her, it was too familiar a family dynamic. Robin smirked slightly. You see, our cook will always have a soft spot for abused siblings. Sounds like her problem, Zoro grumbled, earning an eye roll from Nami beside him. Zoro, be nice, Chopper admonished. It's okay, man, I understand why you don't like her. Usopp nodded seriously. Here you are with one good eye left, and she gets to have three. Life can be so unfair. Zoro's swords flashed. Does Long Nose want to become No Nose? Wah. Now, let's not get hasty, Luffy laughed at his crew's antics. As Pudding shoved out of Sanji's arms and ran for the safety of her brother, a blue smoke erupted from Daifuku's belt, manifesting into a solid being with a long blade. Usopp's and Frankie's eyes bulged. Is that a genie? Sanji had to dodge a new array of attack while Pudding pleaded for her brother to stop, swearing that she could finish the job herself. She was trying to prove her usefulness, Sanji though with a tisk. You already had your chance and completely blew it, Daifuku said. Now take a seat, he backhanded his sister across the cheek. Sanji's eyes widened. Hang on, Pudding. But as he parried with the genie, leg to blade, Vinsmoke Judge's booming voice rang out. How dare you try something like this on us? Back amid the action, the Vinsmoke family table was encased in purple goo and surrounded by Charlottes. The goo solidified, trapping Judge and his children in their seats. Sanji cursed. Damn it, this wasn't supposed to happen. Big Mom seemed to be in some sort of shock rather than letting out the scream she was supposed to. Nami and the others were waiting for that cue to bring the raid suits out. It was all going too slow, and now Sanji had to get over there sooner rather than later. Judge struggled against the hardening candy, fuming. What's the meaning of this, Big Mom? I trusted you. Did this guy really never consider she'd double-cross him? Frankie questioned. Seemed naive as hell for a leader. The Vinsmoke siblings, however, remained calm and disinterested in their own seats. 4 pistols were at the ready behind each of their heads. What about our agreement? Judge was demanding. Even in the underworld we honor decency, answer me. There was nothing decent about their arrangement to being with, Luffy said, shrugging. Beside him, his eldest son was smirking. A little late to whine about it now, father. We sure walked into this one, huh? Ichiji chuckled. This candy has us bound. They swiped all our weapons at the gate, Yanji added with a sneer of his own. They even have our raid suits. Looks like we fell for the perfect setup, Niji said. I guess we aimed too high, huh? The brothers laughed. Judge glared at his sons. What is wrong with you? Stop laughing. PFT. Isn't he the one who made them like that? Zoro said. Reiju eyed her father with zero sympathy. The boys didn't fear their own death. He was the one who had made his sons hardly human. What did he expect? Big Mom's children laughed, too, mocking the Germa king whose face grew so red it was almost purple. You're making jokes? He shouted at them. I've worked so hard. I've devoted my life to this. All for the sake of vengeance against the countries of the North Blue. I've shed blood, sweat, and teep here. Big Mom, what do you have to say for yourself? Big Mom, however, was still in her own shock. There was no talking himself out of this. Please tell me. Judge started to cry angry tears. Tell me this is all a lie. He's crying? Zoro, Usopp, and Frankie bellowed. The lanky first son of Big Mom, Parasparrow, tittered at Judge. Pistols slanted and cocked as they leveled with the captive Vinsmokes, and Sanji's white legs shimmered through the air, catching a flame, shooting his body forward like a rocket to clear his path toward his blood family. Judge was still bawling like a child throwing a tantrum. You bastard, Judge sobbed, struggling futilely against his candy prison. If I had my raid suit, then we would be the ones laughing at you. Bro, you don't though, Frankie shook his head. Guy was a super sore loser. No amount of whining was gonna save him. And he acted so high and mighty. Man, He's really nothing like Sanji, Luffy added. Thank goodness for that, Zoro thought. Although he had to admit, watching the Germa King crumble was satisfying. Raid suit? What is that? Parasparrow drawled. A weapon? Do you think that would help? I don't think so. How sad. You tried to sneak a weapon into your own son's wedding and got caught. Sanji sped toward them, almost there. Eyes catching the glimmer of a gun brush close to strands of pink hair. Leave now, Reiju, he cried, garnering all their attention. Daifuku's genie was hot on his tail. No matter how many times the cook knocked it back, it was on him again, aided by the speed of the wind in the air. It grabbed at Sanji desperately and slammed him face first into the ground. The blonde forced his head up as far as he could, eyes searching for his sister. Run, Reiju. But Reiju, she only smiled at him, kind and soft. The look of their mother. A woman who had also accepted her fate, and Sanji's heart plummeted. It's like she feels a sense of peace seeing her brother all grown up, Brook said. She's ashamed to be a Vinsmoke, but Sanji's a blessing to their bloodline as his kindness confounds all reason. She must see Sora in him, Robin agreed. And feels she understands how their mother must have felt when she looked at Sanji, too. Brook hummed. Quite poetic. Parasparrow watched Sanji's display with amusement. Look at that, Judge. He wants to rescue you. How sweet, Lick. But sadly it's over for you Vinsmokes. Now, let the lickety fun commence. Guns cocked. Triggers pulled back. Sanji's fear ignited through his bloodstream like a fuse. And then, Big Mom's scream reverberated through the chaos. Weapons fell forgotten as her shrill cry shattered eardrums, rendering every person in the vicinity immobile. Even the Vinsmokes shuddered until 3 new fighters entered the fray to come to their aid. Nami, Chopper, and Carrot arrived quietly on scene, slipping earplugs into each of the Vinsmokes' ears, sparing them from the noise. Germa 66 had no idea what was going on anymore, and then, suddenly, a flaming wheel spun from out of the sky. A single heel shattered the purple candy that had them trapped into millions of sparkling shards. The Vinsmoke's eyes rose up to see none other than Sanji, coat billowing in the heat as fire licked up his legs, sending sparks floating around them like ash and casting the blonde and the orange glow of his own power. Zoro wasn't even attempting to hold back his grin. Pride and satisfaction unbridled. And, damn, that was good look for Curly, too. Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper had stars for eyes. Wow, so cool. Judge's pupils shook as he stared up into the fiery, formidable gaze of his underestimated third son. The weak one who was disowned until convenient. The one who had just saved Judge's sorry ass. Frankie laughed. Alright, Sanji, bro totally deserved that moment. Robin smiled, delighted that their cook had demanded to be seen even if it was simply a side effect of the compassion that drove him forward. The shocked Vinsmokes were distributed their respective raid suit canisters by the Straw Hats, and somewhere in that moment, allegiances had shifted. The memory blurred, showcasing a lot of running after that as their plan was thwarted on every account. Anything that could go wrong, did go wrong, Nami sighed. Their initial escape back into the mirror world was deterred by Big Mom's scream destroying the mirror in Caesar's grasp before anyone could get to it, and Capone Beeg had to turn himself into his tank castle form for their escape instead. Meanwhile, the Charlotte children had regained their composure and ascended with ferocity, including Big Mom herself. Sanji was surrounded immediately back at the Vinsmoke table as he watched his crewmates be snatched up by the Charlottes. In the middle of his panic, 5 canisters were held outward, and beams of light blinded the attackers as Vinsmoke Judge and his children transformed into their raid suits in dazzling displays. The Straw Hats stared. Still don't get why their change is so fancy, Frankie muttered, but he was a fan of the dramatics, so whatever. Did Curly go through that when he used his? Zoro chortled. He was sorry he missed it. Burn like the trash you are, a Big Mom pirate yelled in the midst of it all, setting the table alight. Sanji was immediately surrounded by capes. Not a single scratch or burn was inflicted on him or the siblings that surrounded him. Definitely wasn't expecting that, Sanji thought. But as quickly as they appeared at his side, his siblings jetted away, toward the apprehended Straw Hats. Chopper and Carrot were freed quickly, while Nami was thrown into the air as Reiju attacked her captor. I've got you, Sanji cried, catching Nami in his arms and running her to the safety of Bega's castle, Chopper and Carrot flanking him on either side. Nami smiled up at the cook. "Nice catch," Sanji seemed to sparkle. "It's my pleasure, I assure you." "Crew's coming back together nicely, I see," Frankie chuckled. Luffy cleared the way for his crew, and Germa blasted through to the castle as well, just in time for the gates of Bega's body to close. Everyone had made it to their barricaded safety point, but they weren't out of the water yet. They were only protected by Bega's abilities. They needed to get out of Big Mom's territory. If Caesar could fly Big, who held everybody inside him, to the shore, they could all escape their separate ways there. Plans could never be that simple, though, and while arguing erupted, Sanji felt a tall presence come up behind him. "Answer me one thing, Sanji." Sanji stiffened, turned slowly to face Judge. The king of Germa glared down at him as if he was inferior still. Zoro narrowed his eye. "Why did you save us?" Judge asked. "We fell into that trap on our own, and we're hardly your allies." There was a moment of silence as Sanji truly contemplated his answer, and then, with absolute transparency. "Because my father would be disappointed in me if I didn't, that's why." Judge balked, but Sanji persisted. "I used to hold on to all the resentment from so many years ago. A dark cell. An iron weight. A little boy crying. What did I do wrong? I'm sorry. Sorry I was born so weak. Please help me, I can't live in here by myself." The Straw Hats' hearts did not like being reminded of that. "But if I grew up to be such a cold-hearted man that I would laugh at the death of my own flesh and blood, I couldn't face him. If I can't stand tall and look my father in the eyes, then I failed him." Sanji walked forward, remembering all the cruel words Judge had ever spoken to him as he disowned him all those years ago. He was no longer a Vinsmoke. Hadn't been for a long-ass time. And he needed them to fucking know that. Right here, right now. He was Black Leg Sanji, the cook of the Straw Hat Pirates and the son of Red Leg Zeph. Nothing else mattered to him. 13 years ago, Vinsmoke Sanji escaped from the kingdom of Germa and died at sea. Sanji told Judge. "You got exactly what you wanted that day." Sanji threw his fist back as if he was his palm opened at the last second and grabbed at the edges of his cloak instead, dragging the king down to his knees. Now that Judge was eye level with him, the cook spat. "After this, we're done. You're not my father, Vinsmoke Judge, and don't you forget that." The Straw Hats smiled. "It took a lot of courage to face your past, to accept it, and even more to stand up to it. After this, I don't ever want to see your face again." Judge smacked Sanji's hand away and stood. He turned away quickly. "I understand. You have my word. This is the last you'll see of me. And I'll stay away from the East Blue, as well." "Well, that was easy," Usopp mumbled. He walked away and Sanji let him go. There was a silent moment of tension, nobody knowing quite what to do or say. "Open the castle gate," Judge suddenly demanded of the room. "Hear my words, Big. Until Caesar delivers you safely from here, Germa 66 will act as your guards." Usopp blanked. "Huh?" Sanji stopped Luffy from offering his help as Germa 66 made their exit, Judge throwing one final thing over his shoulder. "I don't want to be indebted to that failure any longer." Oh, that cleared it up for the now unimpressed sniper. Zoro knew he would never be able to be in a room with that pathetic excuse for a man without giving him something real to cry like a baby about. As the memory progressed, the Vinsmokes kept their vow. Sanji and Luffy joined in the fight when Reiju was knocked into trouble, and together the two Straw Hats fought alongside the Vinsmokes, head-to-head with the Charlottes. Sanji ran forward, Reiju flying by his side. When it seemed everyone had been restrained, there was an explosion from down below and the chateau began to topple. Sanji grabbed Luffy and air walked off the falling chateau. Nami called to them, and Ichiji and Reiju worked together to clear a path from the falling debris for them. All of this, it was the first time Sanji had ever fought alongside them. Was this what it would have been like had Sanji turned out like them? Or perhaps if they had retained their humanity and they were all just a normal family? Hell, it didn't matter anymore. Sanji had a family, and it wasn't them. That's right, Chopper beamed, so happy in this moment his little eyes were scrunched in the corners. "Let's go," Luffy called out when they had made it to the shore and broke off from their allies. Luffy was grinning ear to ear as they ran to find the Sunny. The Straw Hats had made it this far, and now Sanji could go home. Sanji wanted nothing more than to return to the Sunny. For the first time since he left Zou, he felt almost in control of his own life again. So, of course Big Mom chose to chase after them. Of course her seducing woods had to cause problems. And of course Charlotte Pudding had to show up, her sister, and Bega's wife, Chiffon at her side as they flew alongside the Straw Hats atop Rabian. On the one hand, Sanji was ecstatic that she was unharmed and safe after that whole chateau toppling fiasco at the tea party. On the other hand, there was no way she was here to exchange pleasantries and wish them well on their way. Hell, he still didn't know whose side of the aisle she stood on. But Chiffon at least was an ally, and they clearly had something to say. Pudding and Luffy were growling at each other. Back and forth. Luffy demanding she fight him, and Pudding demanding he shut up and listen to what she had to say. Whenever she locked eyes with Sanji, however, she seemed to stumble over her words. PFT. What's her deal? Zoro scowled. Robin pressed her lips together, and Frankie chuckled. She's back for more Sanji, bro. The swordsman glowered at him. Get it together, Pudding, Chiffon told her. Pudding shook her head, pigtails flailing. Right. Sanji, she started again. Did she need something from him? He smiled delicately at the girl. Yes, Pudding? You, she seemed to be getting redder the longer he looked at her. Sanji frowned. At peak blush, she exploded. You're useless. You deserve death, you miserable idiots. Usopp gawked. Even if you do make it out to sea, Mama will hunt you down in cold blood and you'll all sink into the murky depths. Ahahaha. Hey, what did you just say? Luffy growled at the same time Chiffon snapped at her to get a grip. Pudding cried, what am I saying? You're right, I'm sorry. Sheesh, Usopp muttered. Luffy tilted his head. Yeah, I still don't get her. It was like she wanted to be a jerk, but also wanted to help. He picked at his nose. I wished she'd just made up her mind. It seems she's not sure what she wants herself, Robin surmised gently. Yeah, she didn't get much better as far as I saw, Nami commented with a sigh. Leave it to Sanji to attract the crazy ones, she side-eyed a pouting Zoro, knowing he'd be more than willing to snap at any given moment. Listen, Chiffon told them instead, Mama believes you guys stole her big wedding cake. She's completely fixated on that idea right now. As it stands, Mama would chase you to the ends of the world just to get one bite of that sweet dessert. Ah, that was why she was chasing them first then. Why did she think we had it to begin with? Nami said. It still makes no sense. Unless someone told her that we did, Brook countered. Exactly, Pudding growled and giggled at the same time. So give up, Sanji. Come stand at my side and savor this momentous occasion with me. Sanji stared at her. One curly eyebrow quirked up. We'll watch your friends perish at Mama's hands, muaha. What is your deal? Chiffon butted in again, making Pudding scream and hide behind her hands. Luffy glared. If you came here to torture us you can get lost. Wait a minute, Chiffon pleaded. Pudding told me that black-legged Sanji was really good at making sweets. Sanji nodded absently. But I'm first class at anything I make. Now if he could apply that confidence to the rest of his life, the Straw Hats thought. That's perfect, because you have to help us bake a cake. The exact one Mama wants so we can stop her. Then we'll help all of you escape in return. Who knows if we'll survive or not, Pudding added with a wave of her hand. But I'll make one thing clear. I'm not doing this for you. It's sheer luck that the cake I wanted to bake is the same one Mama craves. And I just passed by this area by coincidence. I didn't know you people would be around. Sanji stared at Pudding, completely confused. So, don't go thinking I came all the way here to stop her because I didn't want to see you all die. You understand me, Sanji? Then she squealed with a blush and hid her face. That wasn't very convincing, Usopp mumbled. Worst lie she's told yet. She's all over the place, Sanji thought. Everyone could see that. Her impressive acting skills are rendered useless when Sanji is around, said Robin. He's made her want to be honest, but I'm certain she doesn't quite know what that looks like for her yet. It's interesting. Anyway, back to business. Sanji cleared his throat. So, where can we bake this cake? Chiffon told them of their plan. If she, Pudding, and Sanji headed to Chocolat Town immediately, the Straw Hats would return to the Sunny and head for Cacao Island, where the town was located. Sanji's group would sail the cake halfway to meet them, intercepting Big Mom with the dessert she was craving. While she was distracted, Sanji could board the ship with his crew and get away with them. Nothing short of a perfect cake will put an end to this rampage, Jinbei warned them. Sanji chuckled. He guessed he had no choice then. Luffy, the cook, smiled confidently at his captain. I'll meet up with you at sea. Luffy smiled back. That one's a promise, Sanji. During their flight to Cacao Island on the magic carpet, Pudding continued to jump back and forth from sweet to sour, unable to find the balance she obviously wanted. However, every time Sanji looked at her or smiled, her cheeks flushed and her eyes turned to hearts. Sanji's turned her into himself, Chopper said, except a little more insane, Usopp added. And I didn't think that was possible. Sanji's memories spun a rapid tale of the events that transpired in the baking process, from sneaking into the kitchen, to Sanji reconstructing the perfect diagram of Big Mom's wedding cake, much to all the helping cooks' shock. Wait, did he just recreate the structure of Big Mom's cake perfectly? Nami questioned. Is that what Chiffon is saying he did? Sanji's palate is so advanced he made an entire diagram by smell, Chopper said, odd. I had no idea the nose could be so powerful, Brook hummed. Of course, I don't have a nose, so, yo-ho. Alright, snapped it, Pudding trilled, appearing with a giant ladle, a flouncing skirt, and apron with an extra-large chef hat to match. Every minute counts. Sanji's hard eyes popped out of his head. Whoa, Pudding looks so cute as a cook. PFT. Zoro rolled his eye. Any woman would look cute as a cook to that lovesick doofus. Nami patted his mossy head. Now, we could get you a chef outfit, Zoro, Robin teased. Yeah, bro, Frankie smirked. Frilly apron and all. Shut up, Zoro teased at them, making everyone laugh. Poor guy couldn't catch a break, and now even Robin was making fun of him. Couldn't they see how stupid this all was? Sanji's compliment made Pudding collapse with redness. The helpers started to praise what a good husband Sanji was, which confused him at first. This snapped Pudding back to reality and she ushered him closer to whisper at him that she edited their memories so they wouldn't know about the whole wedding fiasco. Meaning, she and Sanji would have to work like they were husband and wife. How convenient for her, Zoro all but growled. Nami rubbed his shoulder this time, sympathetic despite all the teasing. Through the snippets of their time baking, Pudding was constantly fawning over Sanji, who, although was aware enough to notice her strange behavior, didn't understand it at all. It didn't matter to him, though. Whatever she was struggling with internally, he would just be kind and supportive. Robin chuckled. As oblivious as he is sweet. Zoro's gaze softened. Yeah, fine. He supposed his cook kind of endeared him sometimes. Whatever. Despite their deadline and everyone adamant the process needed to be sped up somehow, Sanji refused to cut corners for the sake of time. If he was going to do it, he was going to do it right. There were no shortcuts to perfection, and Perfectio going to serve Big Mom. There was no doubt in his mind how happy she'd be when tasting this dessert, and the thought, despite everything, made him smile. He couldn't help it. Here someone was on a destructive rampage for food. She was hungry and desperate, and no amount of violence could stop her. Only the strength of good food. This was a battle Sanji knew how to fight, and one only he could take on. This was his area of expertise, after all. Like second nature. Years of perfecting his craft. A craft so many had tried to shame him for. Always came back to aid him in protecting his friends. The kitchen was his battlefield, and he was going to win. Sanji was made for this moment, Chopper said with a proud little smile and stars in his eyes. You know, Judge spent years trying to beat Sanji's passion for cooking and his kindness out of him, Nami said, sad but intrigued. Yet, time and time again, it's those very things that have helped him survive. Zoro tilted his head down, a lopsided smirk appearing beneath shadowed eyes. In a way, the cook can make allies almost as well as Luffy. Midway through the process, however, one of the Charlotte siblings, Brûlé, called Pudding to inform her of the family's own plan. That even if the Straw Hats made it to Cacao Island, their captain most certainly would not. Luffy was currently fighting Katakuri in the Mirror World. Since the mirror on their ship was shattered, they had to go to Cacao Island in hopes that Luffy would pop up there from a mirror, and the Charlottes would make sure they had the only one. That had been a fight for the record books, hadn't it? Brooke said, reminiscing with the whole cake rescue team. It wasn't a happy reminiscing, but still. They had made it, at least. Big Brother has never lost a single fight in his whole life. Pudding was trying to tell Sanji afterward, who didn't seem as concerned as she though he should be. The curly-browed cook kept casually stirring with a small smile plastered to his face. Then it's a special occasion, he finally said. Huh? Sanji grinned over his shoulder. He's about to lose for the first time. The Straw Hats smirked knowingly, and Luffy laughed. He was right about that. With only a few hiccups to be overcome, and with Sanji at the reins, the freshly baked cake was aboard its ship and sailing smoothly forward to meet up with the Straw Hats and Big Mom. However, Big had other plans. He tried to convince them to add poison to the cake to take out Big Mom, and Sanji put his foot down, flaming and all. Sanji had full confidence his cake would stop her in her path, and he forced Big to try some to prove his point. It had worked. Big admittedly realized there didn't need to be a plan B, but at the same time he had never doubted it would stop her rampage. Big was more of a big picture type guy, which Sanji respected. Because maybe it was the wise strategy to take. Maybe sabotage when an emperor was at their most vulnerable was how everyone should think, but Sanji took charge, more determined than ever. Here's the deal. Assassinate whoever you want, but wait until my guest is served and the meal is complete. If someone is hungry, then I feed them. That is my duty as a chef. Sanji wouldn't allow anyone to die by food, he just wouldn't. Food wasn't for death. It was for life. The Straw Hats watched their stubbornly benevolent chef with fondness in their eyes. No one dared speak against the Straw Hat cook, and soon the cake was completed. Perfect, and with time to spare. Sanji, basking in the glow of being able to cook and make a difference for the first time in a while, addressed his two helpers with endearing softness. By the way, Pudding and Chiffon, covered in frosting and genuinely smiling, Sanji raised his arms out in appreciation. Couldn't have done it without you. Thanks a ton. Seriously, with this cake I'll definitely save my friends. His boyish smile came out at that. And even the Straw Hats were fawning over him at how much he looked like his younger self in that moment. Then of course, flustered, evil Pudding was in his face, laughing maniacally. There's no way you know that for sure. Yeah, the cake is finished and all. But big whoop. I hate to tell ya, but your friends might be dead already. Besides, who knows if Mama will like the cake or not. Honestly, this seems like a big waste of time bringing this sorry-ass excuse of a cake to her, Sanji. Can't she shut up? Zoro grumbled. Whatever her issue is, she'll just put more negativity in the cook's head. Zoro, we've discussed this already, Nami sighed, she's trying. Like I give a shit. Luffy peeked over at his extra grumpy first mate, pursing his lips seriously. Man, you really don't like her. Does this have to do with her 3 eyes again? Because we should just ask her if she'll give you one, he suggested. She doesn't seem to like having 3 very much anyway. That's not the issue here, damn it, Zoro yelled while Usopp snorted. Chiffon yelled at her, and Pudding squealed back to herself. Did I just let that slip? Oh gosh, that came out wrong? Sanji blinked at the chaotic girl. However, he chose to take her words very seriously regardless. Whatever the case is, he said, somber, pulling out a smoke and his gold lighter. It's too late to worry now. Clearly worried enough to need that nicotine, Usopp commented. But hey, he's trying. Sanji walked to the edge of the ship and stared out at the horizon, hoping to see the sunny any moment now. Big Mom doesn't know what's coming her way, he said, a surge of confidence coursing through his veins as smoke billowed around him. The greatest cake ever made. This whole experience had been a whirlwind for him, and there was so much he doubted, so much he was cautious about, even now. But this was his duty. This was what he had always been prepared for. There was no questioning it. He knew this for a fact, because my friends, his eyes sparked alive, my friends, believe in me. And he wasn't about to let them down, not ever again. You could never let us down, Sanji, Chopper and Usopp cried together. Frankie, with his own tears streaming down his face, rubbed at his eyes with his giant arms. The way this guy gets to me, he sobbed. Luffy cackled. Haha, let's go, Sanji. Whole cake was almost behind them for good. There was one task left on Whole Cake Island before Black Leg Sanji could once again bid good riddance to Vinsmoke Sanji. The wedding cake was completed. Big Mom was intercepted. And after reuniting with his friends aboard the Sunny like he had promised, he ended up leaving them again. What? Why? Usopp demanded. Sanji's memories skimmed a lot of what he assumed were specific details that made this all make sense. To get Luffy, Nami answered with a heavy sigh. As much as we didn't want to keep getting split up, especially when we finally seemed to have him back, Sanji's plan was all we had. It was a risky situation, Brook agreed. There were many close calls. That was usually how their crew ended up doing things, Zoro supposed. Close calls were their specialty, which was fine by him, kept things from getting too boring. He was splitting up from them one last time, Sanji swore, to bring their captain home safely. Brook, Nami, and Chopper smiled softly. Flying aboard Rabian, deliberating all the events that had led up to this point, as well as his own ambush to retrieve Luffy, Sanji realized who he was surprisingly most grateful for in all this was Pudding. Zoro's head lowered, an imperceptible pout on his lips he was determined to refuse existed. He didn't want to hear this crap. Just grab Luffy and leave that cracked out place. No need for thinking. He couldn't be more grateful, honestly, for all the help she had ended up providing. Currently, the woman had binoculars pressed to her face, peering toward the courtyard filled with top officers who surrounded the one and only mirror on Cacao Island. The one and only mirror Luffy had to escape the mirror world and make it back to his crew. It wasn't going to be easy. Not by a long shot. But then, none of this had been. The easiest parts had been because of their allies, including the one by his side now. There was no denying that. He's right, Chopper nodded. It was a rough start, but she came around. Nami shook her head. I don't know. I still don't think I'll ever be able to forget all the terrible things she said to us and about Sanji. Finally, the witch was talking sense, Zoro thought. We could forgive without forgetting, to be fair, Robin mused, but by the looks on their navigators and swordsmen's faces that forgiveness wasn't coming from that cell. Thank you, Pudding, Sanji said, ever gracious, as the chocolatier found a place to land. I appreciate all the help you've given me. A lot wouldn't have happened without her bravery. He knew better than anyone how hard it was to stand up and go against your insanely powerful family. Whether she's forgiven or not, I do hope Sanji's influence will help her in the future, Chopper said. Robin gave a light laugh, eyes curving. It's highly likely considering our cooks made such a big impact already. She's clearly head over heels for him, Brook said. Pudding flailed at the cook's sincerity. Cut that crap out. She forced her suddenly heavy breathing to calm. Frankie snickered. I see what you mean. That's what that is. Luffy raised an eyebrow, then squinted, trying to see what they thought was so obvious. A bead of sweat dropped from Usopp's head as he watched his captain struggle with normal social cues when he had a tendency to read people's deepest thoughts like nothing. Sometimes the sniper wished his eclectic crew came with decipher manuals. So, anyway, Pudding said hurriedly, changing the subject. You don't think this will actually work, do you? Sanji answered seriously. I wish Luffy didn't have quite so many enemies waiting for him, but I'm gonna work it out. I will save my captain. The Straw Hats smiled at his dependable determination, Zoro prouder than anyone. The memory morphed then, planting Sanji in the middle of an alleyway in the inner city, draped in a beige cloak, checking his pocket watch as smoke curled from the corner of his lips. The clock ticked closer to the impending chaos, and their escape. There was no question as to if Luffy would come through that mirror at the predicted time. 5 more minutes. With a small smile, Sanji glanced over at his beautiful former bride with a newfound nostalgia. Hey, Pudding. When Luffy shows up here, this'll be it for you and me. He suddenly balked when he realized she wasn't even next to him anymore. In a similar cloak, Pudding stared at him from the shadows at the complete opposite end of the long alley. Huh? Why are you all the way over there? She freaked out at him. I happen to like it over here, that's all. After a moment, Sanji chuckled at her antics. Pudding would be on her own journey from here on out, and he hoped the best for her. She had definitely made some mistakes, made some poor choices, and the things she said. No, Sanji would try to push that aside, didn't want to remember it, didn't want it to taint the present. Even seeing it a mile away, Zoro still huffed. Sure, he was exasperated, but he guessed the cook could be the compassion in their relationship. He'd be the protector of that heart of his from now on. Nothing would hurt it like that again. Everyone deserved a second chance. And hell, Sanji knew better than anyone that you couldn't choose who your family was, but if you worked hard to discover who you were, a group of lovable idiots might just claim you as their own one day, and it would all be worth it. Said, lovable idiots, all grinned with varying degrees of unabashed pride and playful deviousness. "Ya know," Sanji said. Thinking back, it sure was a strange series of events that brought us together, wasn't it? But our parting will come soon. He took a few steps forward and held out his hand to her, that boyish smile plastered to his curly face. "Thanks for everything." An array of emotions flickered across Pudding's face. Shock. Amazement. Affection. Guilt. Robin was noting quickly. Desperation, above all else. Whatever she has to say, she knows this is her last chance. I mean, she tricked him, tricked his friends, tried to kill him. Usopp ticked off his fingers. And he's thanking her. I'd be shocked, too. Luffy laughed. That's our Sanji. He's always a nice guy. Pudding balled her fists. Then, shut the hell up, you idiot. Freaking out at her own outburst now, she shook her head wildly. Still needs to figure out how to calibrate those emotions, though, Frankie said. I get it, emotions are tricky. Sanji threw his head back and laughed, unbothered. And clearly misinterpreting. Well, I guess we're still enemies at the end of the day, aren't we? He said. From your perspective, our marriage was just a means to an end. A trap staged from start to finish, with me walking straight toward my own death. A big show put on by the Big Mom pirates, but in the end, if I had to fake marry someone, he smiled brightly, I'm glad it was you, Pudding. I told that idiot not to think, and now he can shut up, too, Zoro inwardly growled. Nami leaned close to him. He would have preferred you first, ya know, she grinned knowingly. Zoro sputtered. Shut up. I don't care who that idiot chooses to fake marry, besides, he would have chosen Nami or Robin first just because. Oh, only real Mary? Nami blinked with wide eyes and a finger to her chin, feigning innocence. Zoro glowed red. The swordsman needed to cut something, and soon. Frankie was right, emotions were tricky, and Zoro had had enough of the stormy current that were his. Pudding, however, began to sob furiously. No, I wasn't trying to insult you or anything. Sanji jumped to his feet and tried to placate her as she rubbed furiously at her weeping eyes. I didn't mean anything bad by it, okay? Promise, please don't cry? Pudding calmed slowly. She sniffed, seeming to contemplate something serious. Hey, Sanji, dear, I have a request. Can you do me a favor? One last thing before you go? She pleaded up at the handsome chef as her lashes fluttered three eyes into existence, wet and sad and resolved in a somber desperation. A day trust. I wonder what she's, Usopp started before Pudding began moving closer to Sanji. Stay right there. Please, Sanji didn't know what she needed from him but watched without a word as she approached. How she reached up and plucked the cigarette from his lips, how she let it fall. A cold chill ran up Zoro's spine. He would snatch the cook's cigarettes from his mouth like that if he wanted to. And then, Sanji blinked. More confused than usual, he tried to focus on what was suddenly before him. Pudding's cloak trailing behind her as she ran, back facing him. Huh? Pudding? The Straw Hats similarly blinked? Wait. What? Frankie, Nami, and Usopp said at the same time. Where are you going? Sanji yelled. Didn't you have a favor to ask of me? She didn't answer, didn't look back. Charlotte Pudding faded into the shadows and was gone. Usopp trailed off slowly as Zoro cut him off. What did she do? He snarled. Something had definitely happened. They all saw how her power worked and Sanji's thoughts had jumped in a way they never had before. Like they were clipped off. Edited. Nobody answered the swordsman. What did she do? Zoro demanded again, losing all patience for this devil fruit chocolate woman. Well, Nami contemplated. From a woman's perspective, it really did seem like she was about to. She hesitated, sharing a quick, knowing look with Robin. About to what? Luffy and Chopper asked together, oblivious and confused. Brook answered by pressing two fingers to his mouth and pulling them away with a smooching noise and a wink. Luffy's and Chopper's eyes widened. "No way," Luffy said. "And then took it away." Chopper frowned. "But, if she did something so personal like that, then why did she take that memory away from him?" That doesn't leave a good feeling in my stomach," Nami complained. "They were supposed to kiss at the wedding. Does that mean they're officially married now?" Chopper wondered. "And Sanji wouldn't even remember?" "I'm not sure that's how it works." Usopp stared at Zoro's shadowed face. And we don't really know what she did, so maybe it wasn't that bad." "We know something happened," Frankie countered. "Something big enough to make her steal it back, which is super creepy." "We may never know what happened," Robin surmised sadly. She didn't want to admit it, but there was no sure way of ever figuring out what Pudding edited. All they had were their assumptions and she peeked a glance at their swordsman. It might haunt some of them more than others. At that, she also looked worriedly at the blonde cook stuck to his medical table prison, breathing heavily and drenched in sweat. Sanji sighed. Maybe what she wanted was for him to leave her alone. They were still enemies at the end of the day. Well, he had said his piece. Now he had a captain to save and a crew to get home to. Thank fuck. Zoro's breathing exercises could only hold him off for so much longer, and he didn't want to think about whatever the hell just happened. The memory shifted, ticking like the hands of a clock. Each tick a new angle. The anticipation rung in Sanji's ears and echoed from the screen. He crouched at the entrance to the alley, pocket watch dangling. The ticking hands seemed to click in slow motion, each second passing too slow, until finally, 1 a.m. At first, there was nothing but silence. Everyone's breath was held all through the square as ships continued to fire whatever candy cannons they had manufactured at the sunny back on the sea. Right when Sanji could barely take the tension anymore, two figures blasted suddenly from the mirror's frame. A worn-out Luffy and a Sulong form Peckham's. "You don't look too good, Captain," Frankie commented. Luffy simply grinned wide, remembering the fight with Katakuri and the man's dough powers. He had for sure been worse for wear after that, but it was all good. The Straw Hat Captain leapt away from the crowd of pirates surrounding them as quick as he could, but was dangerously intercepted immediately. Luckily, and to Luffy's utter happiness, Sanji was already there. "Win your fight?" Sanji asked. Luffy trilled before immediately falling asleep in his cook's arms now that he didn't have to worry. Sanji grinned widely. "Knew you would." Sanji went up into the air and the memories weaved from battle to battle, fight to fight. One big mom pirate after another bombarding the cook at every opportunity and without mercy. As the recall slowed, a single point in the fray solidified. Flying in from the horizon, came a colorful collection of curly-browed assassins. "Huh?" Usopp squawked. "Germa 66 came back? Entire snail ship country in tow and all," Frankie noted, pointing out the massive backup headed toward the Sunny. "They came to finish helping their bro. Yao. 'Bout time they do something useful for him," Zoro said. Transformed into their raid suits, the Vinsmoke siblings sped through the air to the island and caught every bullet aimed at their brother before he could even think of deflecting them himself. Sanji landed hard. He stared at his four siblings as they stood between him and the fight. "What are they doing here?" Ichiji spoke, calm and to the enemy. "You owe us after that tea party, and you'll pay with interest." "Sounds like Nami," Usopp quipped offhandedly. "Did you come to help us?" "Oh, Sanji, you're here," the redhead responded to the blonde as if bored. "We stopped by to crush these fools. Can't let you have all the fun." As if on cue, they deflected another hail of bullets and weapons with ease. "Sanji," Ichiji addressed. "This has nothing to do with you. Take your captain and escape. We don't need you here." "I can't tell if they're helping because they care or," Chopper started. "It's unlikely they feel any warmth for their brother," Robin said. "But perhaps they've grown some respect for him. As an opponent, and as someone they owe a debt to, at the very least." "Reiju could have helped persuade them, too," Nami added. "Whatever the case was, it's good enough for us," Luffy grinned. "We could have handled it on our own, but it was nice of them to help." Nami pursed her lips. "What are you saying? You weren't even awake during this, idiot." "Yeah, Sanji's pulling all the weight here," Usopp said. Luffy just laughed. "Thought they could outsmart us," Niji was saying. Yanji added, "We'll make them pay for that." Reiju smiled. "And it just so happens all the enemy forces are gathered here for us to destroy. Lucky us." Sanji glowered, unimpressed. Is that your story? He shot back into the air. Whatever they wanted to do was up to them. His only concern was returning Luffy to the ship. As Sanji blasted through the sky, he had no need to fight. Where there was a fired shot aimed at them, there was a wind smoke. Don't stop, Sanji, Ichiji told him after an array of bazooka rockets soared toward him and made him hesitate, having to choose between defending and fleeing. The oncoming explosions were rebounded easily by the brothers. Blackfoot, switch on, they chorused, their joint kicks stopping the barrage. They have a kicking technique they named Blackfoot, huh? Zoro muttered. What were the odds there? With Germa 66 taking care of the brunt of the fighting, Sanji had a clear, unblocked path ahead of him. However, Mirror Extraordinaire Charlotte Brûlée picked that moment to appear and announce to the entire area what had transpired between Straw Hat Luffy and their dear Katakuri. At the news that their unbeatable brother had lost, the Big Mom pirates received a fresh surge of anger. Sanji refused to look back. A bullet pierced straight through his shoulder, and he toppled to the ground. Gah, I forgot he got shot, Chopper shrieked. At least it wasn't a leg that got hit, Zoro said. Sanji got back on his feet with a grunt and ran. He had been lucky it hadn't hit his legs. Zoro almost smirked. He knew his cook. A bullet to the shoulder was nothing. A new enemy charged behind him like a flaming bullet. The top officer Charorange ombre hair and molten fists. The enraged brute shot forward with fiery vengeance. Sanji dodged the man's scythe just to be encompassed by a wall of fire. Ichiji wasn't having it. Sanji, go, the redhead shouted as one brother took on the heat of another. And then another, as a long, wired arm shot out like a robotic grapple to strangle a new enemy in Sanji's way. Yanji, you're clear. The green-haired Vinsmoke smiled then, mocking. Now go. I don't want to look at you anymore, you lame ass. They really have a way of pissing me off, Nami commented, crossing her arms. At least the rude taunt was something Sanji was used to. Having them protecting him, watching his back like this, being able to trust them with his life felt like a fever dream. Lost in his thoughts, he was suddenly grabbed at the speed of light. Niji wrapped him and Luffy in his cape as he sped them up. Sanji coughed in surprise and looked up at the guy. I hate to break it to you, Niji said, but you're a bit slow. Niji pulled out an electric sword and sliced the way clear. One swing and a shivering blue current rocked through from one opponent to the next like a pinball. Whoa, Luffy, Chopper, and Usopp fanboyed. Why did the blue one have the cool powers? You still alive, you failure? Niji asked offhandedly after his attacks. Zoro narrowed his eye. Sanji growled, I was fine. You just had to cause trouble again, didn't you? I didn't ask you punks to help me. Niji smirked. Gonna cry? Before Sanji could retort, Niji pulled them back to toss. Bye, loser. Have a nice flight. He shot the Straw Hat duo forward in a flash of light. Sanji, regaining his composure midair, used the momentum to skywalk faster, even as he cursed his middle brother to the deep depths of hell. It must be Reiju's turn, Brook hummed. It would be nice to see the beautiful lady one last time. You know, for Sanji. Reiju appeared next, poison seeping from her mouth and into her opponents before they could even scream. Sanji disappeared behind her as she stood between him and the enemy. You won't lay a finger on my little brother. Not on my watch. Yay, Reiju. Chopper beamed. Sister cares so much about her little bro. Frankie wailed, eyes pouring. It was too wholesome, he couldn't take it. As a barrage of cannons found their target, Reiju cloaked them with perfectly practiced coverage. You're really high maintenance, aren't you? She told Sanji with a hint of a smirk. Zoro chuckled. That was for sure. Curly was always in some kind of trouble. Even though the cook was strong enough to get himself out of it, it was still annoying as hell. Worrying everyone like that all the time. What a pain in the ass, huh? The swordsman's smile widened. Reiju, his sister's eyes softened when she spotted the sleeping captain. Better not let him go, alright? Of course he wouldn't. She had been right. He had found so many kind people in this world, and if it wasn't for her. Suddenly, Reiju clutched the back of Sanji's vest and launched him forward. Toward his ship. Toward his freedom. Like she had when she had pushed him toward the orbit when they were kids. This time, Sanji did look back. head swiveling to watch his sister fade farther away. "Stay safe," he pleaded. "You, too." The two smiled at each other, a tender goodbye. For the first time, neither had any regrets. If several of the Straw Hats were suddenly crying, that was their business. Except Frankie, who made it everyone's business. "Damn it, I can't with these two," the cyborg sobbed, grabbing hold of Usopp, who hadn't gotten away fast enough, and squeezing the air out of him. With a swift shift, Sanji and Luffy had made it back to the Sunny. A rare warmth spread from the screen as Sanji rejoiced at successfully bringing them all back together. Poor Sunny was beaten and battered like the rest of them, but here they all were, together. Finally home. The Straw Hats' hearts warmed even further. There wasn't much time to get lost in thought, however, they were still being shot at. Jinbei at the helm maneuvered them the best he could to stay out of range, and Chopper got right to work on his captain, propping Luffy into a sitting position and checking his vitals. Sanji watched as, around them, Germa's snail ships moved into a new formation, one that shielded them as they fled. The Germa soldiers running these ships must have been given orders on how to act, Robin noted, curious. Which means whoever was in charge had this planned from the beginning. So, they weren't just there to beat up bad guys, Chopper realized, they came to help us. Sanji couldn't believe what he was seeing. Couldn't believe his siblings had planned all this. It certainly hadn't been Judge's idea. Not only would he never have agreed to wasting energy on protecting them once off the chateau and his debt was paid, he had also been knocked out by Big Mom earlier. He wasn't in charge right now. Sanji's thoughts cut off as the devil himself came into view. The Straw Hats began passing between the last of Germa's ships, the main castle barricaded by the rest, and Vinsmoke Judge stood at the edge of it, an ominous shadow waiting for them to approach as he looked down on them in more ways than one. Sanji, left arm stained red from his wound, freshly lit cigarette melting from the side of his scratched face, hair disheveled from airborne fighting, rolled his hurt shoulder back and stood tall. He stared straight ahead, determined not to engage. As if enraged by being ignored, Judge began to shout, but it wasn't to Sanji, it was to the man he called his captain. "You really think Sanji is worth all this? Are you a fool, Straw Hat?" "Here we go with this guy again," Usopp grumbled, immediately irritated. The others aboard glanced up at the vile man, but Sanji remained frozen, face shadowed. They were almost cleared, and this was what they had to face. His crew had to listen to Vinsmoke Judge and whatever nasty things that spewed from his mouth? Was the universe mocking him? Nami tilted her head. "I know Sanji probably didn't want us to hear anything more Judge had to say about him, but I'm kind of glad we did." She glanced at Luffy with a soft expression. "You've courted death coming into an emperor's territory for him," Judge continued, grinding his teeth in disgust. "He kept telling us stuff we already knew," Luffy laughed. "Victory was never possible. Only retreat. What could this failure possibly offer you in return?" "Tell me Twirly changed his mind and let you kill him here," Zoro said, grasping wholeheartedly to his wishful thinking. "Guy failed on multiple occasions and had his ass saved several times, and he's still talking trash." "He does have that audacity," Brook said. "At the very least cut out his tongue so he'll shut up." "Zoro," Chopper admonished with a flail. "He's useless," Judge insisted when nobody responded. "Just a failed experiment. His skin is soft. He bleeds when he's struck. Despite his royal standing, he's content to work as a lowly chef." The man paused as if waiting to be refuted, but Luffy only quirked an eyebrow at him and nodded. Everyone else was glaring. Sanji remained stoic. Jinbei gripped the helm tighter. Judge glowered at them all. His heart is easily swayed. He sacrifices himself for the weak, even if he destroys himself in the process. Judge spat. "A disappointment as a soldier. A disappointment as a man. What worth do you find in him?" Zoro's steel eye blazed with fury. "Someone shut this guy up," Frankie muttered. After everything, he was still talking about Sanji like that. PFT. Sanji closed his eyes. Everyone waited. When it was clear Judge was finished, Luffy sighed and raised his arm. "Well, see ya," the straw-hatted captain smiled and waved. "Thanks for all your help." "What?" Usopp screeched. Judge balked, infuriated. "I asked you a question STRAWHAT, answer me." Luffy never answered him, never even bothered with a glance back. He looked over at his cook. "Your dad's weird," he said seriously. "But he's stuff to say about you all of a sudden, huh?" Usopp wasn't the only one who screeched this time. "Huh?" Sanji spun around. "What do you mean? You thought he was complimenting me?" Luffy shrugged, just as confused as the first time, while Brook and Nami were already giggling again. "Judge thought he was telling you all Sanji's faults, but of course you interpreted it all as what made him a good person," Frankie said with a giant smile. Realization hit Chopper at last. Oh, Robin laughed fondly. "You're the perfect captain for our cook." Zoro huffed before laughing himself. "Leave it to Luffy." Luffy wasn't understanding why Sanji was so baffled by his comment. Jinbei threw his head back and laughed. "You're such a delight. Always," he chortled happily. "Why is that?" Luffy asked, genuinely confused now. "Yeah, why? Tell us," Chopper and Carrot parroted, equally puzzled. Nami had her hands on her hips, annoyed, and Sanji had his forehead to his palm. But then the navigator sighed and giggled. Brook also started laughing, even though Luffy, Chopper, and Carrot were still oblivious. After a moment, the back and forth carried a welcome sense of normalcy for Sanji. They still weren't out of the water here yet, but perhaps, maybe. With the snail ships officially behind them and zero Vinsmokes in sight, Sanji could at least claim to have conquered one aspect of his life. Whole Cake Island was behind him. Along with it, Sanji had hoped his relation to Germa 66 had also been left behind. It only took one fluttering wanted poster to reveal how wrong he was. Sure, he'd been ecstatic to see his bounty had surpassed Mosshead's. Zoro scoffed, amused. Cute bastard could enjoy it while it lasted. Though, the thought of that reunion sent his nerves into a frenzy. Because as much as reuniting with everyone else since Dressrosa excited him, he knew there was no getting around leaving half their crew behind on Zou. He'd have to face the consequences of his actions sooner or later, and Zoro was the one he feared most. "I'm trying to remember. When did you guys reunite?" Nami asked. "Protecting Otoko," Zoro said, reminiscing. Luffy was the first he saw arrive in Wano. Alone. He hadn't asked about the others or the cook. It wasn't because he was afraid of the answer or anything. The future greatest swordsman didn't fear answers. There'd just been plenty of distractions. And distractions were all Zoro wanted at the time. If his captain hadn't succeeded in his mission to bring back their runaway cook, he figured he'd be able to tell anyway. "Didn't you run off with a woman right after that?" Usopp remembered. "It was Kazuki Hiyori, correct?" Robin said. Of course, they didn't realize that until much later. "Oh yeah," Zoro tilted his head up. He had her to thank for Enma. "Really pissed Sanji off big time," Frankie chuckled. "Now I'm starting to think in more ways than one." Zoro's brows furrowed. Then Brook chimed in. "She was the same woman I found him sleeping with, Yoho." The Straw Hat's response to that shattered the air. "What? Ha?" Zoro sputtered. "It wasn't, she was sleeping on, next to, she was sleeping next to me, for warmth, with Otoko." "Such a naughty swordsman," Brook hummed, as Usopp congratulated him and Luffy cackled. Robin hid her laugh behind her hands. This was clearly payback for the jokes about Brook in Big Mom's bed. "Damn, bones for brains," Zoro huffed as Brook yohoed at him with a wink. The swordsman leaned back, closing his good eye like he was unbothered by any of it. "PFT. Doesn't matter. Besides, Curly and I made up just fine in the end," he thought with a secret smile. But, aside from all of that, he was now a wanted pirate with a surname. Vinsmoke. "Oh yeah, they did add his biological name to his bounty posters right after that," Chopper said. Sanji Vinsmoke was still alive and well, apparently. Not lost at sea all those years ago like he had told Judge. Because of course not, and now, just to make things worse, everyone would know where he came from. What would people think once they read who he truly was? What would the guys at the Bharati say? Zeph, did he know who Germa was? If he did, would he think less of Sanji? "No way," Luffy said easily, waving that idea off instantly. The other side as their chef's anxiety spiked, while Usopp said, "Where you're from doesn't define who you are, Sanji, geez." Robin tilted her head. "Our dear cook probably still hasn't stopped worrying about that. Surely, there's a way to get into contact with the Bharati. Of course, he might want that particular conversation to be face to face." Sanji's gonna wear himself out until he gets that closure, for sure, Frankie said. Would he think Sanji had made the decision to add the surname? Groaning, Sanji squeezed his eyes closed and took a drag, blowing the billow of smoke out toward the horizon as the sunny drifted at a steady pace toward Wano. He didn't want to think about all the gory details right now, especially when a very distinct canister had fallen from Luffy's pocket earlier that day. Black and yellow and emblazoned with a bold number, 3, on its side. Zoro eyed Luffy incredulously. You're how he got his raid suit. What did you do? Steal it? Usopp asked as Luffy shook his head. It wasn't me. I found it in my pocket. One of his brothers put it there as a prank, I think. The swordsman's eye narrowed. Of course those bastards did. Sanji's heart had plummeted at the sight of the thing and, face shadowed, had snatched the can from his captain's curious hands. He and Chopper had been drooling over it, each wanting to take it for a quick spin. Like hell Sanji would have let that happen. Even though I know why he was so upset about it now, Chopper said with a little pout, I still wanted cool powers. Yeah, I bet we would have looked awesome as superheroes, Luffy agreed. I'm gonna chuck this hunk of garbage, Sanji had said, and Luffy had argued with him. It was in my pocket. If you don't want it, give it back. Brook had tilted his head at it. I am rather curious about how it wandered into Luffy's pocket. Must have been Niji, Sanji had answered, still wrestling Luffy out of its reach. He probably did it to piss me off. If I'm gonna get stronger, I'm not gonna do it by relying on this thing or some technological crap. Whoa. Let's not insult technological crap, Frankie said. Nami snickered. That's more or less what I said. But I think we can understand where he's coming from a bit better now. Sanji had tossed it aside, and Luffy and Chopper had pounced, much to the cook's irritation. It must have been nice to be so unaware of Germa 66's horrible background. However, no matter how hard they'd tried, or how cool their poses had been, neither of the two had received their cool suit. Yeah, apparently it was designed to only work for Sanji, Chopper said, forlorn. But how would a canister like that know? Usopp wondered, scratching his chin. The gears in his head were turning. And so were the Hollowell specialists. Its surface must react to the Vinsmoke's touch, Hollowell surmised to himself. And if there were no buttons or pressure points. Perhaps also electrical currents within certain points of his body, as he can clearly hold it without transforming. Tishishishi. Fascinating technology. The scientist glanced over at the bound blonde wondering if he still had his device around for them to take. Zoro didn't like the way the guy was looking at the cook. His crewmates had wanted Sanji to show them how to use it, and he'd growled. Stop your crying. I'm not part of that goon squad, so new rules, don't say the word Vinsmoke or Germa. They're officially off limits anytime you're around me. Sighing a curl of smoke into the air as he remembered grabbing the stupid container back from his crewmate's grubby paws once again, Sanji figured that maybe he'd never be able to escape that part of him, ever. He decided to hold onto the raid suit for that exact reason, its presence heavy in his pocket even now. It was the logical approach, he thought, to keep it close. It was made specifically for him, after all. And anyway, he swore he'd never use it. The monitor went black. A single thought echoed from it. Except, then I did. A swirl of memory jolted the screen awake and through a colorful ward of time until, suddenly, the flower capital of Wano shimmered into existence. It was late in the day, sky dark and thick with dust from a very destructive rampage. A rampage due to one of Kaido's Tabiropo members. Page 1. In his ancient zone form, he was aggressively set on finding his target, the soba cook, Sanguro. Sanji watched from a distance, Trafalgar Law at his side along with Franosuke and Usohachi. Hey, it's Trafi, Luffy grinned. They're baiting you, Law told the Straw Hat cook. Ignore them. Our only priority is getting out safe. No, Sanji's eyes flickered open with a glint of passion everyone knew well. Page 1 was destroying the flower capital in his wake, putting innocent people in harm's way because he was looking for him. He couldn't just walk away and leave them helpless. They knew Kaido's lackeys wouldn't show any mercy to civilians. I had to help them. Oh, let me guess. He blames himself, Usopp shrugged. I think we know how this goes by now with this one. Luffy waved his hand. Ah, Sanji will always help people first. That's who he is. They couldn't blow their cover, though. That they had to get out before Drake and Hawkins arrived. An entire plan rested on their success, and still, Sanji couldn't turn his back on these people. "I'll stay undercover," Sanji promised his comrades, a harrowing idea solidifying in his mind as he said the words aloud. "I just have to beat him in an instant, right?" There was no doubt in Sanji's mind he could take down this lizard guy, but if time was the issue, and if he needed to remain undetectable as a Straw Hat, then there was one boost of power that might actually be useful. It wasn't his first choice of tactic, but it was here with him, available, and maybe he'd toyed with the idea of finding a use for it already, in the days leading up to more prominent battles. It was a tool, after all. A resource he had at his disposal just in case he needed it. He was thinking that time had arrived. It couldn't hurt, right? Zoro's stomach dropped. His body pulsed, a wary warning. Would this really activate some dormant Vinsmoke curse and curly brows? Sanji's hand disappeared into his robe, searching. "Guys. Go on without me." A black canister was pulled free. He juggled it in his hands. "I promise my identity will remain a secret." Law glowered. "Why do you insist on make things difficult? Trafi really needs to get with our program if he's going to keep allying with us," Nami said seriously. "Indeed," Brook said. "Making things difficult is what we live for, if I was alive, anyway." "What do you think Sanguro has planned?" Usopp wondered, inching closer to look beyond the Heart Pirate captain. Frankie eyed the cook. "He's got something in his hand, Germatech." Sanji's stomach churned at the word, and his hand stilled, grip tightening on the canister. He glared at the thing. Fine, he was going to try it out, but no matter what happened here he wasn't going to rely on it. "Now, don't go getting the wrong idea about me," he told his friends. "Just because I'm trying this doesn't mean I'm like them." It's funny. At the time, we knew he didn't like the family that arranged his marriage, but not how deep it went, Frankie commented. "Makes way more sense now." "I'm willing to give this a shot, though," Sanji said. "We're fighting an emperor of the sea. There are going to be times where we can't save a life, especially if we're too stubborn. But if I swallow my pride, then there are people I can save right here and now. If this has the power to help, then I need to use it." No second-guessing himself, Nami noted, a little impressed, a little hopeful. Twirling the canister in his expert fingers, Sanji then pressed it horizontal to his waist. A beam of light shot forth, glowing yellow and blue. "Sanji's going to do the fancy transformation," Luffy said, eyes shining. Zoro's amused smirk was back. This he couldn't wait to see. The light encompassed him, and suddenly, Sanguro's striped clothes slipped from his body, revealing a muscled strip of pale skin. Sanji's back turned. The screen was swallowed by his bare chest, rippling stomach, then down his strong legs. "Oh my," Robin said. Zoro's jaw hung open. This was supposed to look as ridiculous as his brothers. This was as ridiculous as his brothers. Why were they getting a show? And why was Zoro liking it? Violet light crawled up his shins, transforming into solid black and gold. Distinctive Germa hover shoes manifested onto his poised feet as the swirls of purple ran further along his exposed skin. White gloves climbed up his forearms. Black cloth fitted to his thighs, his biceps, his broad shoulders. Scruffed jaw and serious lips masked in the same fabric, from his chest to the bridge of his nose. Black headphones with a gold 66 print shaped themselves over his ears as his golden hair molded itself into sharp points. As sharp as the dark-tinted sunglasses that appeared over his eyes. Sanji's body spun agilely in the power of the light as a black cape with red lining flowed from his shoulder blades and was signed off with a bold, white number, 3. Standing gallantly on the rooftops of the flower capital, tingling with a strange sense of power, Sanji finished off with a pose. He just couldn't help himself after all that, could he? Nami said. Haha, I would have done it, too. Luffy laughed. Who augmented that to happen? I wonder, Robin mused, charmed. Frankie and Usopp stared on in starry awe while Law's eyes widened. Hold up, the Heart Captain said. Seriously, I recognize that outfit, that's from Sora. Warrior of the Sea. He's wearing one of the villain's costumes, the third member of the Army of Evil, Germa 66 Stealth Black. Law's words broke Sanji out of his moment like a sharpened knife to the back. How the hell do you know so much about this? the masked cook demanded. Everyone knows that comic's huge in the North Blue. Whatever, I don't care. It sounds like he cares, Usopp murmured. Look, don't ever call me that again, Sanji ordered. You got that? I know my stuff, Law countered, unperturbed. I was a regular reader of the series. I rooted for Sora to kick Germa's ass time after time. Sanji looked at the way Law was glaring at him, and he glared right back, offended. Well, I hated them too, so there. Zoro snorted. Page 1 interrupted with an irritated, prehistoric grunt. Don't ignore me. Whatever you got going on is fishy as hell. Name yourself. Sanji paused. He didn't have a name. You are a member of Germa 66, Law stated. Tell him, Stealth Black. He doesn't know what he's saying, Chopper whined. I want to know what Sanji picks. Frankie and Usopp pursed their lips. They were keeping their mouths shut on this one. I am not saying that crap name, that's for sure. But he also couldn't say his real name. This was supposed to be his undercover identity. He had to come up with something good. Let's hear it, Luffy bellowed in excitement. This is a superhero in the flesh, Usopp exclaimed, setting his crewmate up for the perfect introduction. This is your badass intro, brother, Frankie yelled. Tell him who you are. Sanji sweated. Eyes twitched, breath struggled, too much pressure. Then, with a flurry of hand gestures, he decided. I am Soba Mask. The Straw Hats recoiled. Huh? That's what that dumbass picked, a food name. Luffy's starry eyes glinted, interrupting Zoro's judgment and anyone else's. That's so cool, I want to be a superhero named after food. A bead of sweat dropped down every other Straw Hat's head. The sniper side-eyed him. You would like that name, Luffy, how about Mighty Meat? Please stop talking, that name sucks, Law said, as Frankie and Usopp cried tears of disappointment behind him. And he's obviously Germa. He's just jealous he didn't think of it first, Luffy said. Somehow I doubt that's it, Nami muttered. She truly was stuck with a crew of mostly idiots, she though with a sigh. Sanji chose to ignore Law's comments in favor of focusing back on the fight at hand. He was Soba Mask now, but, more importantly, he didn't quite know what to expect. He'd seen his siblings in combat. Knew some basics, like their trademark hover shoes, so he figured he'd start there. He's finally doing something interesting, Reese spoke up, sounding as tired as ever. Not that it'll do him any good. He is serving his purpose to us, Hollowell said in response. That's all that matters with this one. The Straw Hats glared, but the battle on-screen took off before anyone had a chance to voice their own opinions on how uninteresting Hollowell and his specialists were. On-screen, the acceleration devices built into his heels propelled Sanji's kicks into a new dimension of power. The force unmatched. His speed made it hard for his opponent to keep track of him. The dinosaur's claws couldn't touch him as long as his iron-like cape deflected every hit, creating a rock-solid barrier around him. Sanji was surprised at how natural it felt. He didn't have to think too hard about IDAPT at all. It's like an extension of how he already fights, Robin noted. She didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, however. As Sanji backflipped out of page 1's reach, he suddenly vanished. Looks like he pulled it off, he heard Law say. At first, Sanji didn't know what he was talking about, focused primarily on beating the crap out of this ancient lizard. He was relentless, and his opponent didn't seem able to fight back. His eyes never seeming to land directly on him again. Sanji realized with a bout of shock that his raid suit was reflecting his surroundings over his entire body. He was invisible. Distracted by his newfound talents, page 1 advanced on a now visible Sanji with nearly a direct hit just as Sanji vanished once again. Stealth Black, nope, Law cried, Frankie and Usopp stepping forward too, concerned that the giant monster's tail had crushed their cook. Sanji reappeared beside them. I literally just said my name was Soba Mask, knock it off. Chopper flailed. He almost gets crushed and that's what he's concerned about. I'm not the hand of evil nor the hand of justice. Okay. These hands are for cooking, and for protecting my friends. He faced the Tabiropo member and addressed the three men beside him more calmly. Don't worry about me. Go on ahead. Besides, he flexed his fingers. This jerk's perfect for testing out how powerful this raid suit is. And maybe it wouldn't be so bad having a raid suit up his sleeve from time to time after all. It would be beneficial to the crew, wouldn't it? Especially the stealth aspect. How could Sanji deny them that? It was Germa technology, something he never wanted to associate with. But if he had this one thing at his disposal right now, he could use it for good. He could be in control. If this raid suit was the final thing from his heritage left, maybe, just maybe, it could be the one thing that didn't have the power to destroy him. Zoro, startling everyone, loudly cursed everything to hell. Sanji was not in control. On-screen, a singular hallway in a traditional Wano design swayed as if off balance. It was dark and filled with debris of destruction. "That's Onigashima," Robin noted, and Zoro grew rigid. He knew this was about to answer every burning question he had about that day. Sanji was taking a step backwards. There was someone at Sanji's feet, but the memory kept them blurred, as if Sanji himself was afraid of what he would see. No, his thought rocked the screen further. It couldn't have been him. He didn't do this, huh? Luffy tilted his head. Didn't do what? None of the Straw Hats knew what was happening. This wasn't him. He wouldn't have, he'd never. Think back, he demanded himself. Think back. Long, spindly black legs swirled forth, transitioning the memory back through time. Black Maria strutted towards Sanji with all 8 legs on display. The SXY blonde exuding all the confidence of someone who knew exactly how gorgeous they were. Well, from the waist up at least. A half-spider woman? Usopp and Chopper shrieked at the screen. In addition, the snipers brain-idly wondered, so, if an arachnid is half-woman, Sanji can be distracted enough not to freak out? She's huge, Zoro commented offhandedly. She had clearly been taken care of because none of the other Straw Hats, save for 2, remembered ever seeing her. Black Maria, Brook hummed. A spider-wise seductress with a cohort of women perfect for taking advantage of a certain womanizing chef. Yoho! I was wondering if this particular battle would be remembered. This must be who he was fighting when he called out over the intercom, Nami realized. She knew it was because of a woman. But knowing Sanji's thought process better, she smiled a bit. Instead of letting himself get beaten, as he did at Eni's lobby, Sanji went and asked his friends for help. Zoro and Luffy had no recollection of that at all, either. Must have been on the roof, Zoro figured. Robin's expression, however, softened. Black Maria was intent on making Sanji her pet, and Sanji was intent on letting her. If he couldn't get out of her grasp without hurting any of the ladies that surrounded him. There were worse ways to go, he figured. Their fight had been one-sided from the start. No matter how many hits he'd taken, no matter how dire the pain got, Sanji never fought back with intent to harm a single hair on those ladies' heads. He'd even dropped his armament hockey if they used their hands as their weapons. He wouldn't hurt them. Couldn't. Even on accident. He was constantly aware and in control of his strength to make sure of it. Zoro shook his head. Still didn't make any sort of sense to him. But, once again, his cook never did anything half-assed. The dumbass really did take every precaution to uphold his beliefs. Zoro couldn't be too annoyed with him for that. Wrapped up in the Tabiropo members' webs, Sanji struggled against survival and principles. What he had to do versus who he wanted to be. He'd been in this situation many times before, but not many he couldn't get out of. It was his fault he was in this mess to begin with, he knew that. But he wondered, did he accept this was the end of the line for him? Did he give up his dream and let down his captain because he couldn't get out of the situation without harming the enemy, an enemy he refused to harm? Or, did he admit he could have his flaws, because he had friends who could balance him out? Everyone's eyes widened a fraction, before grins overtook their features. There it is, Frankie said. I knew Sanji bro had a good reason for calling on Robin here, but now it's more than good, it's super. If his time on Whole Cake had taught him anything, it was that there were far too few people in this world you could lay your whole trust into. And by some miracle he had found those people. He had his friends, and he needed to trust them. Trust them to be there for him, too. And if they broke, he would just have to pick up the pieces with them afterward. They were a team. Nakama. Right, Luffy? The captain grinned widely. That's right, Sanji. Frankie and Chopper cried tears of unabashed joy together. They were so proud of their cook, damn it. Black Maria and her lovely fiends wanted Sanji to lure Robin to them for their own devious reasons. had been attempting to coax it out of him this whole time. But Sanji knew Robin could handle them, easy. With blood dripping in streams down his battered face, and tied at the arms, legs, and torso by Black Maria's sticky webs as her brass-knuckled fist came flying towards his face once again, Sanji made his decision. He pushed his head back, sucking in as much painful air as his lungs could take. Then, he shouted for all he was worth, for Robin. "Help me, Robin." His blonde hair curled around him. "Help me, pleassssee." His plea shivered through the memory until the archaeologist of the Straw Hats was suddenly there, calm and confident and dazzling. "As super an entrance as ever," Frankie said, making Robin chuckle fondly. She wasn't alone, either. The webs strangling Sanji turned to ice. A skeletal swordsman rushed past, and they shattered. "I beg your pardon. Just passing through with the gold gales of the underworld, yo-ho-ho-ho." Always with the dramatics, Nami smiled as Brook burst into another, yo-ho. Now freed, Sanji landed with a heavy thump. Even sure Robin could handle this all on her own, he was relieved nonetheless that two of his friends had come. "Thanks, Brook," he told the musician as Robin distracted Black Maria. "You saved my life." Brook sheathed his sword and hummed, "Anytime, any place." "And I mean that with all my heart, Sanji," Brook said. "Except, I don't really have a heart, do I? Yo-ho-ho? Hate to say it, but I'd be better off helping Kinnaman and the others on the roof." Sanji shuffled off, regaining feeling back in his legs. "For some reason, I feel like I just can't win this one." Brook and Robin smiled fondly at the blonde's back as he hobbled away. "You're right about that," they said in unison. The Straw Hats chuckled, Luffy the loudest. "Ah, Sanji," the captain laughed. His friends came and took over, no questions asked, Sanji thought. No judgments passed, either. He had made the right decision, right? They wouldn't be angry at him later, would they? Robin sighed, but her smile was still there, still warm. Black Maria screeched behind him as he began to run. "Why are you protecting that idiot when he sold you out? You really think he's worth your life?" 100%, Robin replied easily. Robin only smiled politely at the woman. "How sad. You don't have friends. If you did, you would surely understand. It's a fine thing, trusting someone. And for the majority of my life, very few people have ever trusted me, let alone so completely," Robin tacked on quietly. "You were one of the first people he called on for help, Robin," Chopper told her happily. "Yes." Robin's smile brightened, cerulean eyes curving at the corners. "It truly meant a lot to me." On-screen, Robin called to her retreating friend, Sanji. The addressed looked over his shoulder, a clear look of worry on his face that he'd done something wrong. Robin gazed over her own shoulder and met his expression with a warm one. "Thanks for counting on me. I mean it." She winked. "That made me happy." For a split second, Sanji struggled to process why she would thank him for that. He had pled his feeble heart out to an audience of hundreds. He was the laughingstock of the entirety of Skull Dome, surely, but then… "I made Robin-chan happy?" His eyes burst into hearts. She said, "Happy?" and winked. He must have made her happier than ever. He did that. Black leg Sanji making Robin happy. Why? Disoriented in his fluttering, he missed his exit and slid along Brook's freshly laid ice until he crashed into a wall. "That's our Sanji," Brook sang as Robin laughed with the others. "What a moron," Zoro chuckled. His moron. The wall itself morphed into another. Sanji was in the main performance. King and Queen flashed across the screen. The Beast Pirates All-Stars. "These guys," Frankie murmured, all humor vanishing. Chopper shivered. "They were the worst. I wouldn't have made it if not for Sanji." The Straw Hats weren't the only ones to recognize them, however. "Ah, Queen the Plague," Hollowell tittered. "Tishishi. Quite the character, that one was." "A nuisance," Ashman corrected offhandedly, making Hollowell laugh again. The Straw Hats eavesdropped with curiosity. Despite his eccentricity, he did beat me to claiming some of Judge's research. "Credit where credit is due. And all that," Hollowell said. "We shall see how good that'll do him here. Up against a true experiment of Judge's. Tishishishishi." Invading Onigashima proved just how advantageous a suit made for stealth could be for Sanji. He hadn't used it much, but it had proven useful in times of emergency, like now. King the Wildfire, the armored Lunarian, had little Momonosuke hung in his grasp by his neck. The lead performer went to strike, a testament to disobedience, only to collide with an invisible force instead. Spindly trails of fire coiled around the two. Oh, yeah, Luffy remembered, eyes glimmering. Sanji sure knows how to make a cool entrance. Usopp nodded seriously. Putting my teachings to good use, I see. Soba mask flickered into view, and the memory spun rapidly as, not minutes later, King pulled an obliterating blow that buried the masked blonde in a pile of rubble. Luckily, Sanji had handed Momo off to Shinobu beforehand, or the kid would have been seriously injured like he surely was. That hit was brutal. Sanji could feel it all at impact. There was bustling and rescue around him until he was back in the light of the room. "Are you alright, Sanguro?" someone asked. Sanji responded with an automatic, "Yeah," before he really knew the answer. His raid suit was back in its canister, and he was standing and walking just fine. And Zoro stared, because that damn red wine suit was back and fully on display. A tingling began in Sanji's arms, a strange shivering sensation snaking around his elbows, over his shoulders, down his torso. "Wait," he rubbed at his chest, prodding gently, "maybe I'm not alright." After a moment, nothing else happened. No irritation, no burns, no aches, no throbs. Had he imagined it? He seemed completely fine all of a sudden, but, hell, he should have felt way shittier after that hit. And what the hell was that sensation afterward? Robin quirked an eyebrow. Zoro stared, unblinking, the thoughts of what he did to Sanji in that suit after Wano vanishing from his mind in an instant. Others tilted their heads in confusion. So, what? He got lucky. That was a good thing, wasn't it? There was too much happening across the battlefield again before Sanji could mull it over. Too many distractive pieces to this conflict raging in chaos. No matter where he turned, someone was in trouble. With another flourish of color, Sanji was catapulting through the air, heel colliding with the top of Queen's ancient zone head after he tried to attack Otama, Nami, and Usopp. Nami clapped her hands together gratefully. A well-appreciated save, Sanji. Even if I, the great Captain Usopp, had a counterattack waiting to strike. Queen was the last beast pirate Sanji wanted to face. The crazy bastard knew his family. As if sensing Sanji's trepidation, the air filled with the dinosaur's growling rage as he swung on the Straw Hat Cook. "So," the cyborg Dino hissed. "You're the one responsible for that, Judge's little reject." "Huh, he did have a loud mouth, didn't he?" Zoro recalled. Eye narrowed. His jabs at the cook were making more sense to him in retrospect. Sanji glared at the man. He knew way more than Sanji first gave him credit for, which meant one thing. Of course this science-obsessed freak had worked with Judge. "That's ancient history, Judge's boy," Queen laughed when Sanji asked about it. "Man, everywhere we go there's someone who's worked with his crazy cruel pops," Frankie said. The guy's bad luck really had no limits. The zone had an array of cybernetic transformations, limb extensions, with swords and pincers and blades. Each bout of memory transforming just as quickly. Queen was suddenly no longer his enemy. King had joined him. Both superpowers were ruthless in their chase of him, and Sanji realized very quickly that he needed backup. He couldn't handle two lead performers at once. Not on his own. For now though, he'd hold on. For his friends. For Chopper, and for Mosshead who was napping on the job. Zoro scoffed. "It was a little nap. You were actually sleeping?" Usopp and Nami screeched at him. The swordsman's veins throbbed in his head. "I was recovering from Kaido and Big Mom. The cook was holding them off just fine. He waved it off. He knew I'd be back on my feet soon to save his ass. They didn't get curly the way he did. Here the idiot cook was. His thoughts unfiltered and longing for Zoro for backup. Yet when Zoro did show up there was nothing but whining. It was their repertoire every time. This was the perfect material to rub in the cook's face, but Zoro smirked, knowing that, at least this time, he wouldn't let Curlybrows know he'd heard anything about his thoughts here. They were rivals, but they were also a team. And after all that's happened, that last thing Zoro wanted to do was deter Sanji from asking for help if he truly needed it. When it came to Queen and King in that moment, though, Zoro slept to recover at peace knowing that idiot of his was more than capable to bid him some time. Queen's verbal jabs were as relentless as his physical ones. Why can't you just accept you and I are two of a kind, Vinsmoke? Stop calling me Vinsmoke. I got nothing to do with that old man. Sanji's right calf turned to molten lava. Queen deflected easily and glared right back at the other blonde, unimpressed. Blood will tell, Vinsmoke. First the bounty poster, and now this guy, Nami muttered. Do you think Sanji will ever get away from his messed up family? Everyone frowned, because now he had Hollowell mind tech torturing him on top of it all, too. King sent a strike toward the argumentative cook. You're only delaying the inevitable. Sanji dodged, having it hit Queen instead. These two were really starting to piss him off. You won't be cooking anything soon, King continued. Once I'm done with your legs, your hands are next. People really don't want Sanji to cook, Luffy said, shaking his head in confusion. I bet if they tried his food they'd change their minds. Right, Nami sighed with a roll of her eyes, because that's the problem they have with him. That's the downside to wearing your heart on your sleeve, Brooks opposed. Your weaknesses are just as out in the open. The battle raged on in a series of twists and turns and knockouts. A strike from King sent Sanji tumbling along the ground, and the scene jumped into another. With a flash of clanging metal, Zoro soared into the fray, Sanji kicking up speed right behind him. The two, orange and green and maneuvering around each other like a practiced dance, shot like beams of light toward the enemy. King and Queen were thrown back with synchronized precision by blade and heel, and Zoro and Sanji landed gracefully together on the other side of the destructive carnage. Now that's an entrance, Frankie applauded. Talk about a power couple, Robin said appreciatively. Then she gave a knowing smirk. Two wings, soaring. Luffy cackled happily, understanding exactly what Robin meant. Zoro watched the screen intently. He'd never seen himself fight before. The sheer power emanating from him and the cook side by side left him dumbstruck. It was a sight he wished he had more of, if only to see the raw force of his partner as it complemented his own, and vice versa. The angle shifted. A new trajectory of memory. Sanji puffed at his cigarette. Zoro cracked his neck. The wings of the future Pirate King faced off against their equally intimidating opponents. An hourful silence. Both Straw Hats' expressions gleamed with determination. Their legs took off, pushing them into the air as Queen shot at them. As easily avoidable as the beam blades were, something shifted in Sanji's shoulder and he flinched, grunting as he lost stability and was almost hit. It was as if something had injected itself within his arm, but there was no pain, just movement. Sanji landed, braced on one knee, left hand gripping at his right shoulder as he gritted his teeth around his cigarette. His muscles seared in discomfort. The tingling was eerily similar to earlier. What's wrong with him? Usopp asked. This was the second time something weird was going on, and even he didn't seem to know what. Chopper's eyes widened slightly. This must relate to what I saw later during the battle. Something freaky was going on with Sanji's body. The doctor's words only confused everyone further. Robin hummed, brows furrowing in concern. Zoro's guarded gaze added to her suspicions. Zoro landed beside Sanji, glancing at him under the shadow of his bandana. Hey, what's up with you? I don't know how to describe it, Sanji grunted. But ever since I took off that stupid raid suit my body has felt off. Zoro kept his eyes on their two enemies as he tried to make sense of what Sanji had said. It's not every day Sanji admits something is wrong with him. Especially to Zoro, Brook mused. It must have taken the swordsman off guard. His raid suit. Nami tried to think back to the times they'd seen him use it and how that possibly correlated with whatever strange feelings Sanji had now. You telling me you're sick or something? Zoro started. You better not drag me down. Sanji stood abruptly in retaliation. Says the guy who was sleeping on the job not 5 minutes ago. The cook had taken that bait exactly how Zoro had wanted him to. Besides, I didn't say I felt sick, alright? Sanji rolled his shoulder multiple times to loosen it up. Just feels kinda weird. His brows scrunched. Zoro noticed. Oh, weird like your eyebrows? Said eyebrows twitched. I said my body, you jackass. This was the dynamic from the duo that the bemused Straw Hats were used to more than their rare moments of public displays of affection. Luffy laughed heartily at his friend's antics. Why were they always the funniest in the middle of a fight? His crew was hilarious. Although King was standing in front of Zoro, as the Lunarian observantly listened to the conversation at hand, he suddenly launched himself at a disoriented Sanji. Not 2 feet from the blonde, King's blade clashed against Zoro's blades. "Yeah, that wasn't happening," Zoro uttered casually. On-screen, Zoro was just as casual. "That's one you owe me," he goaded the cook. Queen swung in now, a flaming ponytail aimed at the preoccupied swordsman. Sanji kicked it away speedily, shooting back at Zoro, "I don't owe you shit." The swordsman smirked in genuine amusement. "I've got a question, Judge's boy," Queen sang, making Sanji's jaw clench. The number of idiots he had to deal with on a daily basis astounded the chef sometimes. "I already told you not to call me that," Sanji responded. Queen was undeterred. "I heard all of Judge's kids were cyborgs. What part of you is artificial? Vinsmoke Judge is as crazy as they come. Bet he got real creative with you. So, is that burning leg of yours a machine?" Every word out of this asshole's mouth made Sanji sick. "Hate to break it to ya, pal, but unlike my siblings I'm 100% human. Humans can't light themselves on fire, you moron, and I know damn well you're not a Lunarian." "Well, I would have known if there was any kind of cyborg in my vicinity," Frankie said, matter of fact. What if they became cyborgs later? Zoro unconsciously wondered. He instantly grew frustrated with himself. People couldn't just turn cyborg out of the blue. As if reading the swordsman's thoughts, Robin mused. "I doubt whatever technology is embedded in Judge's children resembles a cybernetic piece of machinery visible to the eye. But some part of Sanji could be cyborg," Chopper wailed. Usopp turned on him. "Sanji's not like his siblings, remember? He wouldn't have any of that crap." Chopper only seemed to fiddle with his hooves, as if plagued by re-emerging memories of his own. Zoro didn't like that look on the kid. Made his stomach drop. Even the others seemed curious about Chopper's behavior added on top of Sanji's ever-growing strangeness. Something was wrong. At Queen's mention of Lunarians, King glanced over, inquisitive. Zoro watched the movement with a sharp eye. He quickly took back the armored beast's attention as Sanji and Queen also went head-to-head. It was a full-out brawl within seconds. Flashes of fiery displays against clanging steel. As the memory flurried through countless attacks, sparks and flames gnashing at every twist and turn, Queen suddenly clipped the dead center of Sanji's chest with his metal claw while he swung another pair down against his back. The cook sent up a cloud of dust as he was knocked headfirst into the ground. "Damn it. He hit me straight on that time," Sanji grumbled, pushing up onto his knees. Something in his body loosened as he moved, and he cursed. "It feels like I might have broken a couple ribs." Sanji pressed at the tender flesh under his breastbone, and... "Huh? Ribs are fine." He stood straight, perfect, hands on his waist as if daring his ribcage to protest. "Okay, so what had moved? Something was definitely off kilter, so, was it his back?" He stretched. Crack, nope. Nothing, maybe his neck? Crack. Sanji didn't understand. His body seemed fine. How is he fine after that hit? Usopp questioned, the pitch in his voice growing higher with the tension in the air. Queen wasted no time getting back to action. His attacks were relentless, but always toying. Just on the edge of deadly without actually crossing the line. It was like he was trying to pull something out of Sanji, but Sanji couldn't figure out what it was. As Queen managed another direct hit to the center of Sanji's chest, he sang enthusiastically, "You gotta show me the good stuff." The hell was he talking about? I want to see Germa 66's combat suit, now? The Straw Hats grimaced, some in annoyance, some in confusion, one in heavily disguised concern. Why is he suddenly demanding that? Nami wondered. It seems he wants to see more of Judge's technology in action, Robin said. Tishishishi. For the sake of science, challenge is necessary. Hollowell was thoroughly amused by the turn of events in this pathetic Vinsmoke's past. Sanji gripped his head, vision blurry as he focused on what Queen was asking, as well as the destruction around him. Destruction that hadn't affected him at all? Sanji flexed his gloved fingers in awe before glaring back up at Queen when the Dino Freak spoke again. Why you holding out on me? Do I gotta ask nice? You brought out your suit when you were fighting King. Why is he special? It made you turn invisible, right? Queen howled. That's Judge's handiwork if I've ever seen it. He made it just for you, so show Daddy some love and break it out. You really know how to push my buttons, Sanji growled. As he stood, a wave of something unfamiliar washed over him. He wobbled back, grabbed at his head again. Near his eyes, he blinked several times until his vision cleared. I'm feeling weird again. And did the world look a little clearer all of a sudden? It seems as if every time he's hit, whatever gets injured fixes itself, Robin said suddenly, mind reeling. Huh? Luffy and Usopp squinted their eyes to see what she was seeing. For instance, just now when he landed he was having trouble seeing. After he felt that odd feeling of his, not only was his sight fixed, but he mentioned that everything looked clearer, as if whatever damage had ever been done to his eyes was perfected in the process. What does that mean, exactly? Nami asked worriedly. I'm not sure yet. Wear the suit, you tease, come on, Vinsmoke. Sanji could barely at once. How thick is your head, you stupid lizard? You don't know my family situation? I don't even think of them as family. I am not wearing that shit, got it? What if I say pretty please with a big beam on top? Queen mocked, his lasers going off like a toddler throwing a tantrum. No matter how much the singing science expert antagonized Sanji, the Straw Hat refused to relent. His legs clashed with Queen's bladed arms again and again, and yet neither could get a detrimental hit on the other. Queen approached Sanji with a devious laugh, watching as the sweat dripped from his face in streams. The beast pirate seemed to have an endless amount of power-ups, and Sanji was getting sick of them. As if on cue, the dinosaur planted his feet and stretched as far as he could from tail to nose. Then, his long neck shot from his body. Queen's head slithered around Sanji like a snake. Usopp, Nami, Zoro, Brook, and Frankie balked. Huh? I never knew dinosaurs could do that. That's so cool, Luffy exclaimed. No one's ever escaped from my brachiocoelus technique, Queen boasted with Sanji firmly in his hold. Your squishy human body is no match for the raw power coursing through my veins. Not even a master of conqueror's haki could escape this. The pressure will shatter your bones, crush your internal organs, and compress your body into a human meatball. But since you're judge's boy, I'll cut you a sweet deal. Show me Germa's power suit and I'll let you go. Beats getting squeezed to paste, right? Go to hell. Ah! Blood roared in Sanji's ears as his lungs squeezed like they were getting trampled. Usopp winced. That looks bad, even for Sanji. Queen was getting as tired of Sanji's resistance as Sanji was of the man's own persistence. Luckily for Sanji, Queen disrupted his own hold on him by the power of his own voice-activated rockets and both went flying in opposite directions. Wow, that was super embarrassing for Dino bro, Frankie said over Luffy's cackling. Sanji laid face down in the rubble as Queen reoriented himself. My constriction technique did its job, anyway, Queen said. The fight's over. You're already dead, I just came to bury you. I thought for sure he had so many broken bones, Chopper said. Crushed organs as well. I was going to use the mink medicine we used for Zoro on him, but... Without a word, Sanji stood. He was met with horrified gasps as he wobbled for balance. Sanji! Chopper wailed in the distance with his distinctive and strange old man voice. What in tarnation is going on with Yao body? Not old man Chopper, Luffy laughed. You're so tiny, Usopp snickered. Chopper only pouted. He couldn't help the side effects, like Luffy was one to talk. Huh? Sanji tried to comprehend the reactions around him. What do you mean? Everyone was staring now. The Straw Hats tensed with anticipation as the scene panned out. Sanji's left leg was bent in 3 places. His torso was strained unnaturally to the left, ribcage sticking far out to the right. Sanji panted as he watched them all with confusion. Neck also bent oddly to the left, wondering why he couldn't seem to stand up straight. Wah! Luffy's eyes bulged. Zoro's widened. Brook's jaw dropped. What the hell is wrong with him? Usopp stammered. How is he standing? Nami added, hands over her mouth. Robin's eyes were dark and serious. This was what I was talking about. UAC wooked, old man Chopper exclaimed. Are you okay? Sanji hobbled forward a few steps. I guess so. I mean, it hurts, but it seems like I can walk at least. His body will surely fix itself now, Robin surmised. It's like it has a mind of its own. Hold on, Luffy interrupted, excited. So, whenever Sanji starts falling apart his body puts itself back together. Like a zombie. Brooke shrieked. Chopper flailed. That's what I said. More like, Robin hesitated. She didn't want to be wrong, but she kind of also hoped she was. Like a cyborg, Frankie finished for her, eyes just as dark. Or a superhuman experiment. Sound familiar? Zoro, sitting cross-legged, gripped his knees to anchor himself to his surroundings. To reality. No need to let any of this get to him. He was breathing and in control. What are you saying? Nami demanded, horrified. You think Sanji is? She swallowed hard, focus going back to the screen. Sanji gripped his chin and the back of his neck and yanked, straightening it with a sickening crunch. He looked down. What the hell? My body's all weird. Y'all think? Usopp couldn't handle what he was seeing. Sanji smacked the abnormal joints back into place. Guess that works. That's all you have to say? Usopp was losing it. You're bent in a million different directions. But what happened to me? Sanji said, quiet and contemplative. It's really freaking me out. Sanji was perfectly back to normal, not a bone out of place. I've known Sanji since I was but a wee boy, he heard Chopper saying. But I've never seen him do anything like that. What are you, Sanji? Was Chopper accusing him of something? Gah. Chopper's little arms flailed in despair. Oh no, I didn't mean it like that, Sanji, I promise. Sanji flexed his hands. His wounds were healed, just like the last time he got badly hit. Wait. This power, a firecracker of memories intertwined with Onigashima. Little Sanji's fist breaking against Ichiji's nose. Little Sanji's katana snapping like a twig against Niji's forehead. Yanji's cruel kick to an innocent animal only little Sanji seemed kind enough to care about. All laughing. All as indestructible as they were repairable. That couldn't be right, though. His siblings were different than him. His genetic mutation never activated. Sanji's pupils withered with horrific clarity. Did something trigger it? Trigger it? Nami whispered, thoughts racing a mile a minute. Like it was lying dormant this whole time? Was that possible? Sanji. Stay focused. Chopper was yelling. Look behind you. Sanji heard the call, but he couldn't move, couldn't process. I'll finish you this time, Queen hollered, blade drawn. Anxiety froze the room. People were yelling. Queen's blade swung. It struck directly against Sanji's neck. The straw hats stiffened instinctually. And the blade snapped in half, the steel tip clattering yards away from its intended prey. Ow. The hell? Sanji said, like nothing more than a needle had pricked him. His cheek, however, was contorted inward where the sword had hit, the side of his face concaved. Sanji ran his fingers down the side of his face, first in confusion, then understanding. Because he had just let his guard completely down like a moron. Queen had just tried to decapitate him and should have succeeded. Yet, Sanji was otherwise fine, and he knew. This was all wrong. Knew what this was. Knew this wasn't what he wanted. The crew watched, wide-eyed and speechless. Children, of all the things I've built, you're the greatest. Vinsmoke Judge's voice swung in Sanji's mind like a pendulum. Each swing a sharp reminder of who he was supposed to be to that jackass, and how he never wanted to be it. You're an incredible team of scientifically modified superhumans. Unlike normal humans, you are unbound by emotion. Sanji's breath staggered unevenly. He balled his fists, panicked. There was no way he'd become someone like them. Even furious about his damaged weapon, Queen smirked. You did that yourself without armament hockey? Looks like I get to see some Germa tech after all. The words prompted another prickle of terror as the cook's heart stumbled in rhythm. He pinched at his concave cheek, stretching it back out. Pulled at his jaw. Brows creased and eyes withered. He knew it was all happening again. Each pull elicited an agonizing crack. But all that was truly splintering was Sanji's heart. No, please, it can't be, Usopp said, just as pleading as their cook was. I mean, he's fine in the present, he gulped. Isn't hearted to their captive crewmate and back up. None of them knew how deep this went, or if it was actually happening. It was all speculation, and Sanji had never led anyone to believe something could be wrong with him, right? Every muscle in Zoro's body shook. Should he have told someone of? No, the cook had confided in him for a reason. It wasn't his to talk about. Besides, it couldn't have gone very far or Sanji would have given him more information afterward. But even to his own ears he knew he was trying to convince himself of that fact as everyone's stresses bled into his own. Including the cooks. Twirly's panic was palpable through that damn screen. "Never seen someone with a body like yours before," Queen sang. "But I do remember Judge going on about it. I'll give humans exoskeletons," he'd said, and accelerated healing. Wide-eyed, Sanji felt the back of his head, fingertips running down the length of his neck. "Exoskeleton," his fingers whispered at him, accusing. "I'll give them incredible strength, and a heart of ice that won't be swayed by petty emotions." It was like Sanji's whole world was collapsing in on itself. His jaw opened even as no words could express the fear that bubbled just beyond his throat. Did he deny it? Did he call for help again? What good would any of that do? His subconscious reminded him of Germa's soldier depot, where they grew humans like potted plants. "What's more is our men are as obedient as they are strong," Yanji had said while Sanji hyperventilated. Sanji was as panic-stricken now as he was that day in the laboratory. He wouldn't say things like them without any remorse. He wouldn't act the way they would. I'm not like that." He looked up, brows curled in complete and utter anguish. It was a face of little Sanji's, and his crew's hearts reached out for him. Zoro's thumped with the urge to shield that face from all harm and smooth its brows until all lines of distress dissipated. "I'm a human, not a cold-blooded creature like them." Sanji took a desperate step forward, fists at his sides, eyes stinging. He knew who he was and who he wasn't, and "I'm not a monster." "Come on," Queen laughed at him, "you don't gotta cry." "There goes another loser mocking his feelings," Nami said, making Luffy glare. "He has every reason to cry if he wants to," Chopper sniffed indignantly. He had witnessed this firsthand that day, and yet, there had to be some kind of mistake. It was too heartbreaking seeing this through Sanji's eyes. "Welcome to the Monster Club, Vinsmoke." Queen's claws started to spin. His beams ignited. "You're gonna fit right in." Shit. A laser barely missed Sanji, singing his pants. His mind whirled in turmoil faster than his legs ran. "Damn it. Just give me a sec here. I gotta figure out what's going on with my body. I need a little time to think, okay?" As he ducked and dodged, he obviously wasn't betting on it. This was the middle of goddamn battlefield. But he knew a panic attack when he felt one, and fuck. He needed to bid himself some time. A couple minutes. 1 minute even. He needed to figure out how to deal with all this. "Sure isn't a hell of a good time for this to be happening," Frankie muttered. It was crisis after crisis after crisis. They all should have come to expect it by now, but this was unprecedented. Frankie tried to remember if he'd detected any changes in Sanji after leaving Wano. Was this happening because I transformed into Soba Mask? Sanji wondered. Really? I used the suit a couple of times and I'm losing my humanity already? Chopper wailed. Sanji can't lose his humanity. Sanji could tell by the murmurs around him that everyone must have thought he was crazy. Hell, he probably was. Running away. Talking to himself. A laughingstock once again. What else was new? When were people not laughing at his pain? And how could he blame them? He had finally accepted that being a disappointment to the Vinsmokes meant he was exactly where he was supposed to be. And now the universe had snatched it away from him. He could almost laugh, failing at being a failure. What a fucking joke. Sanji, Brook, Robin, and Chopper just wanted to embrace their anxious friend. Damn it, Curly, don't think like that. He's regressing, Nami stated sadly. Can we blame him? Frankie said. He's not a joke, Luffy said, full of confidence. This was just something Sanji had to push through. Had to be. Bullets collided against his back. Lost in his mind's chaos, they should have lodged right into his flesh, but instead they bounced off as if he was made of iron. Queen was delighted. Oohaha, his exoskeleton's tough. Sanji cursed, continuing to run as he was chased and fired at. It felt like he was being attacked in body and spirit. And Queen just wouldn't shut the hell up, pestering him like an annoying fanboy with zero self-awareness. Show me more of your Germa tech. Be a pal, put on your suit. Shut up about Germa, Sanji yelled back, but even as he spoke, he couldn't help the reality of what he was facing sink in. Deep in his bones, the change was still happening. He could feel it. Spasms of reconstruction. Usopp did not like the sound of that. Nobody did. I don't want to be like the rest of my family, damn it. Everything he went through as a child, Everything he learned about himself on whole cake. Every fault he fought so hard to remedy and every flaw he worked so hard to accept, it was all in jeopardy. Every path he stepped forward on to follow his dreams. Every push he gave himself to strengthen his bonds, especially the reinforced establishment of a special one. A breathy moan filled the room. Scarred brown hands gripped at muscular pale thighs. Bodies bit with truces and harsh caresses. Raw passion combined with comforting whispers creating an ambrosial blend of satisfaction and inexorable safety Sanji never felt before. Oh my. Brook shielded Chopper's and Luffy's eyes, much to Luffy's irritation and confusion. Nami and Usopp flailed. Oh God, make it stop. Frankie averted his gaze to the ceiling. He did not need to see that. Zoro ignored the pulsing red heating his face. Don't like it, don't look. He shot at the ridiculous idiots freaking out around him. His steely eye landed on the specialists. Those are the assholes who didn't deserve to see such a delicious stretch of skin on those bare legs. Robin disguised her laugh as a cough. They had needed this tiny reprieve from their worries, even if it was at their swordsman's expense. Damn it, so much had changed for the better for Sanji recently. Some things having taken years, some things shifting as quickly as a few days of desperate reconciliation. Coming to terms with so much of himself in such a short amount of time had been overwhelming. Trusting his friends without reserve and stealing the confidence it took to act on his heart's desires felt next to impossible most of the time. Everything he'd gained, he still hung on cautiously to, waiting for it to fall apart. And now, it was. Now, everything Sanji had fought for was suddenly thrown into a blender without a lid, leaving him to scramble on his hands and knees to clean up the pieces of the life he'd created for himself. He didn't want to change, not ever, but especially not now. I'm happy the way I am, his thoughts cried. This is bullshit. The Straw Hats were back to depressed. It really wasn't fair. It clearly doesn't get that bad, though, Usopp tried to reason. We don't know that, Nami said, killing any hope instantly. She wasn't one to cater false optimism. She was a realist. We've seen how powerful their mutations are. If Sanji really is feeling it being activated, who's to say how far it'll progress? But Chopper also looked at their present-day cook. He's still Sanji. From what they all could tell, that was true enough. But could they be certain something hadn't permanently altered in him? Ahead of him, something soft and frail called out. It was nothing but a jumble of noise to Sanji as he ran through Nagashima, however, lost in the darkness of his mind as Queen's words about Judge played on repeat. I remember Judge talking about this. He wanted to create the perfect soldier. Sanji shook, his thoughts growling. Shut up, with incredible strength and a heart of ice, powerful and merciless. Shut up. Don't pretend you're not excited to show off that germ of blood in your veins. Sanji couldn't catch his breath. His fingers tangled into his hair as he tugged, harder and harder, burning. I'm not like them, damn it. His hands slid down his tingling face, familiar and completely different all at the same time. Luffy's head popped up curiously. Something was off about Sanji's face. He pictured his brothers, his father, a rage of fury flashed over him as all he could see was Judge's smug face smiling down at him, knowing and triumphant. Sanji couldn't take it anymore. There was no way, there was no proof, he couldn't. He wasn't a monster. I'm human, he screamed, his body boiling with every ounce of anger, centering at the arch of his foot, until the image of Judge in his head shattered with a fierce blow. A shrill scream erupted. Sanji blinked, eyes still withered, trying to make sense of his new surroundings. Someone was in front of him, flying back as if they'd just been struck. Their cherry-pink hair fluttered in their cry, flower pins sailing free of the strands. Sanji balked, realizing that the person in the orange checkered kimono was a woman. She landed harshly, her head punctured. She pushed herself up into a sitting position and felt her wound. Her hands came away bloody as her lips quivered and eyes watered in pain. Such a beautiful girl, in trouble, but there's nobody else around, Chopper said, brows scrunched like the others. What had hit her? Are you okay, miss? Sanji asked, trying to shake himself out of this weird feeling he had inside him if it meant helping a lady in need. He stepped forward hurriedly but halted almost as fast when the woman screamed at him. Stay back, she whimpered, shimmying away as if terrified. Don't come any closer, Her brown eyes watched Sanji closely, arm out as if protecting herself from him. Sanji's horrified realization filled the screen. It seeped straight into the stunned stillness of his crewmates. Had Sanji? Luffy's fingers snapped up, noticing the odd sight he was seeing for the second time. His eyebrows are wrong. Sure enough, staring back at them wasn't a Sanji they knew at all. The curl of his eyebrows had changed direction, matching those of every other successfully altered Vinsmoke.